There are two main approaches we can use to design adventures. These approaches are often referred to as design paradigm. The first is called simulative design because it simulates how the real world works. There are facts in the game world that exist independently from the actions of the characters. For example, let's say the party wishes to save a kidnapped prince held by bandits in the Blue Beholder Inn. In a simulative approach, the game master will predetermine the layout of the rooms, deciding that there are two rooms on the second floor of the inn. The left room containing the bandit king and the kidnapped prince, while the right room has 4 ruthless bandits. These are simply facts of the game world. Prepping for a simulative session usually involves creating and populating a map of the locations the party might visit before the game even begins. The other approach is called narrative design. This approach predetermines events that will happen during the session based on the narrative we want our players to experience. Let's revisit the kidnapped prince scenario. When we plan our session using the narrative design approach, we might say, okay, we want the party to interact with the 4 bandits first to build tension, and then we want them to find the prince and have a cool boss fight with the bandit king. In this approach, we decide that whichever room the party approaches first will hold the bandits, and only after they defeat the 4 vicious bandits will they find the bandit king and prince and have a final showdown. Now, it's tempting to think that you should plan your game session using one design approach or the other, but the truth is that game design is a spectrum, with simulative design and narrative design on either end. The design of every scene, much less session, usually lies somewhere in between these two paradigms. A game master might plan a mostly narrative session with a single simulative scene, or perhaps the session is set within a simulative dungeon with a narrative sequence planned for the final encounter with the boss. Both paradigms have their pros and cons. A simulative design requires more work beforehand, but is more flexible when the players make weird decisions, like polymorphing into lizards and scale the inn's wall. A narrative design makes it easier to create a coherent storyline and plan a more engaging session, but its structure is more rigid and less able to support unexpected choices that the players may perform. Why are we discussing these paradigms? Because each session design paradigm requires a different approach to prep. If you're planning your session with a more simulative approach, you'll want to spend more time detailing everything around the main location, while focusing less on fleshing out possible follow-up scenes. If you use a more narrative approach for planning your session, you will need to spend more time thinking about the narrative flow of the scenes, but won't need to worry about populating every single location with stat blocks and loot. Every game master preps differently. If you haven't planned many sessions in the past, you'll want to experiment with how you design your sessions. Over time, you will find a specific blend of narrative and simulative approaches that works best for you. This will take a lot of trial and error, and that's okay. Each time you prep, notice what went as planned and what went off the rails. And remember, every gaming group is different. Some groups will respond very well to simulative sessions, and others will prefer narrative ones. The best that you can do is to reflect after each session and work on improving one small thing for the next time. All right, it's time to play around with both design paradigms and see which approach feels more natural to you. Open the Chapter 5 worksheet to the Session Design Paradigm section. Here, you're going to describe a scene from an existing fictional work, probably the same work you've analyzed in previous chapters. Then, take your time and describe how you would prep for running that scene using the two different design paradigms. Consider what stat blocks you would need to prepare, maps you would need to gather, or monologues you would need to write ahead of time. As you do that, you might think to yourself, how much effort should I put into designing the session? How many stat blocks should I prepare? Do I really need to write out the full monologue? These are great questions. In fact, they are so great, we are going to spend the whole next lesson talking about them. See you there.